sometimes controversial, always politically incorrect, and pro-life without exception, without compromise, and without apology. It's the Pro-Life America podcast with your hosts, Sarah Waits and the president of Life Dynamics, Mark Crutcher.
Hey guys, where we are back after a 1-week hiatus, and that was brought on because my sidekick here, Sarah Waits, was under the weather.
Yeah, I had literally no voice.
She's now kind of about 75% back again.
I'm still on some pretty heavy medications, so it depends on the moment.
Yeah, she's probably about as good as she's going to get for a while.
But the good thing is that with this stuff affecting my sinuses, it gives me a better radio voice, right?
Yeah.
It gives me that more deeper radio voice.
Sultry. Yeah, oh yeah, that's it. Anyway, last
episode on the Pro-Life America podcast.
Yes. We were talking about the issue of how do we talk to abortion-minded women. Mm-hmm. Of course, we went over the issue that we need to quit patronizing them. We need to start treating them like adults and not children who have to be pampered and sheltered from the real world and insulated from their own behaviors. And we talked about a lot of different issues involving those things. And we also talked about how sometimes we actually create abortion-minded women. For example, in the case of talking to teens, where we hit them between the eyes with this argument that getting pregnant as a teenager is the end of the world. And it's not.
Yeah.
But when you tell them that it is, because you think you're doing them a favor by saying, don't go out and have sex, don't get pregnant, don't do these things.
It'll ruin your life, yeah.
But when you tell them that, and then they
all
get
of a sudden they're pregnant, yeah.
Then you're trying to talk them out of doing the thing.
That you spent ages
basically telling them if you don't want to get pregnant. When they're saying, well, this is a way for me not to be pregnant, right? So we have to be very cognizant of that. And another way that we do that, another way that people who are ostensibly pro-life create abortion-minded women is how we do treat women who get pregnant, particularly in the case of teenagers like we just talked about. Years ago, we stumbled across a situation right here in Dallas, but we found out it's a nationwide problem, where Christian schools throw girls out of school if they get pregnant.
Okay.
And I encountered this, I won't use their name, but there's a local Christian college here that you see them at every major pro-life event. I was doing a speech there, and I had dinner with the head of that school. And somehow we got to talking about this, and he brought it up, the fact that if they have a student there that gets pregnant, they throw her out of school. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
But I reaffirmed it with him. And he said, that we just can't have teenage girls that go to a Christian school walking up and down the halls pregnant. We just can't have that. And I said, so what you're saying is the problem is the image that it creates for the school.
Yeah, essentially.
And he didn't want to admit that's true, but that's basically...
Well, I mean, when you say we can't have pregnant girls walking around, I mean...
Yeah, and so I started asking him, I said, well, have you thought about the fact that when you are a Christian school and you're telling women that they can't go to school here if they're pregnant, that you're encouraging them to have abortions? And he said, well, we don't think that that's true. He didn't think that they were encouraging them to have... I said, well, certainly you are. There's no way around it. What's this? This girl can keep going to school if she's not pregnant, but she can't if she is pregnant.
Yeah, because what do they do if they find out that she's not pregnant, but she's having sex?
Well, I brought that up. I asked that very question. I asked him several questions about this. I said, what would you do if you discovered that a girl in the school was sexually active, but she wasn't pregnant, but she was sexually active? What would you do with her? And he said, well, we would bring her in and counsel with her and try to push her toward second virginity.
So not kick her out.
He said, we might kick her out. It depends on how she responded to the counseling that we gave her.
Okay. What about the guy?
That's what I asked. I said, what about the boy that she's having sex with? If he's a student here, what do you do with him? Well, we bring him in counseling.
Okay.
And depending on how he responds to the counseling, we make our decision there.
What about the guy who gets the girl pregnant? Now, does he get kicked out? I'm going to guess the answer is a big fat no.
We get the counseling argument. I was pretty hot by this point. I said, what you're saying is the baby's the problem. It's not the premarital sex. It's not the boy who's engaged in premarital sex. You don't do anything with him.
Because you're not going to counsel the teen girl who's pregnant. No, it's an automatic kick out for her.
It's automatic with her. Mm-hmm. So let's say you leave the boys out of the equation. Mm-hmm. You bring in two girls at the same time. Mm-hmm. One girl is sexually active and is pregnant, and one girl is sexually active, but she's not pregnant. Mm-hmm. You're only going to throw out automatically the one who's pregnant. So you're saying that the baby is the problem.
Yeah.
You're a pro-abort. That's the pro-abortion position. Pro-aborts say that, the sexual activity is not a problem. We condone that. The baby's the problem. So you're encouraging these women to have abortions.
Well, they may not be meaning to, but that's exactly what they're conveying.
Even once they know that that's what they're doing, they didn't change the policy. Now, that was on a Saturday when that happened. I came back to work Monday, and I was telling the office about it. And I said, I don't think you'll be seeing me asked to speak there again. And sure enough, I've never heard another word from them. Mm-hmm. Up until then, I was a fairly regular speaker at the campus. I said, this is a hardcore conservative Christian school that says they kick girls out if they get pregnant. Mm-hmm. I wonder how common this is. I had a young lady in the office that was like me, just outraged about this. Mm-hmm. And I said, let's just put you on the phone for a few days and you start calling Christian schools and Catholic schools around the country and let's see how common this was. What we found out, it was extremely common. Extremely common. I would say that probably more than half the schools that we talked to, that was their policy. Universities and high schools, Christian high schools and universities.
Wow, that's a shame.
Yeah, it is. And it's another example of the criminal way that the American church has handled the abortion issue. And, I've often wondered why we have over 3,000 crisis pregnancy centers in the country. Why isn't every church a crisis pregnancy center?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't every church in America be a crisis pregnancy center?
Yeah.
And it's because they don't want them.
It reminds me of that verse in the Bible where the people following Jesus were like, why are you talking to and hanging out with
sinners,
the tax collectors, right? And he's like, I'm like a doctor. I didn't come to heal the well. I came to heal the sick.
Right.
That's the same thing with all these ministries. If we're not having an impact on the people who need us most, what are we here for?
What's the point?
What is the point?
Right.
These are the people who need us the most. You can't be like, no, we can't have you among us now.
Right.
Right when they need you the most.
Yep. There's a lot of that going on, and I haven't redone this testing that we looked at in the past, but we've never heard of anything where these schools are starting to change their policies.
Yeah. I would imagine if it was true then, it was probably still true now. But
well, what was interesting is this young lady that I had make these phone calls, she graduated from a very well-known Catholic university. I'll tell you who it was because they actually eventually treated this the right way it should be. She went to Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio.
Okay.
And she took it upon herself to call them. And first thing she was happy to find out about was that they didn't throw girls out who got pregnant. So she was really excited about that, and as well she should be. But in the conversation that she had with the person that was talking to her from the university, she stumbled across something else. Like a lot of schools, they required that all students have health care. And if they don't have health care when they come there, they have to buy it through the school.
Yeah.
The Franciscan University healthcare paid for abortion.
Really?
And they didn't know it.
Oh.
This woman on the phone was just as outraged as our employee was, Lisa was. And boy, when Lisa found that out, she went berserk. And she was on the phone. And I think she even talked to the headmaster of
the school,
dean of the school. And man, she was like a pit bull. She wasn't going to let go of this thing until this thing got solved. And it literally got solved in a day.
Wow.
The school did not know that the health care they were providing to their students paid for abortions. And they got that solved real quickly.
Yeah.
And all these problems can be solved quickly. This problem with kicking girls out that are pregnant, you can solve that with one meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
One policy change.
It doesn't even have to be a meeting. It could be a memo.
It could just be a policy change.
It could be an email.
Yeah. This issue of throwing girls out there is no defense for that. If anyone out there listening to this says, well, I understand what you're saying, but I think you're wrong. These girls should be thrown out of these Christian schools. I wish you would give us a call and we will treat you with respect and come on this show and defend to me that policy. Defend to me the policy of throwing these girls out. When you don't throw out the girl who's sexually active or the boy that gets this girl pregnant or just a boy that's sexually active. I even asked him, real near your campus here, is a 7-Eleven store.
Okay.
Let's say one of your students goes in there and shoplifts something and runs away with it, and they catch him. Will you throw him out? Or is this over here, having a baby is the only sin that you see that's an automatic expulsion? And again, we got the counseling study. Well, we would bring him in and counsel him. And in the counseling, we would make a decision about what we would do with him. But it's not automatic that he'd be thrown out. Anyway, I want to bring up something that I think is important for people to understand about counselors at crisis pregnancy centers. There is a built-in bias toward having females be counselors. And you can understand that. But you know, you've heard me before counsel a lot of these girls.
Yeah.
And I know there was a CPC, I think it was in Illinois years ago, who had mostly male counselors. And they were very successful. Very successful. And I did some counseling here over the phone, as you've heard over the years. And I also, when we ran a CPC here in Denton, I did counseling down there. And one of the things that Karen, that ran the CPC here, told me, she said, when you come in here and counsel these women, the feel of it is totally different than the women that counsel here. And she said, I think a lot of these girls that come in here who are pregnant don't have strong father figures in their life.
Maybe.
They're raised by single moms, or their parents are divorced, or the man in this family is just kind of withdrawn, or whatever the reason is. They don't have strong male figures in their life. So they respond well to male counselors about pregnancy. And so I want to encourage crisis pregnancy centers out there to relook at that. If they have a policy, and it may not be a written policy where they say only women can be here, but if that's what has just happened culturally happened, I want to encourage you to relook at that issue and think about the possibility that you may be very well served to have some men counselors there. And it got to the point with our CPC we had here in Denton, the Susan B. Anthony Women's Center. It got to the point that Karen, because I didn't work there every day, I was here at the office, but it got to the point that Karen would call me and say, we have a girl here that one of the counselors is talking to, and I think she would respond better
to a man if
you can take off and run down here and talk to her. And we had some real success with that. I'm not saying have all your counselors be men. I'm just saying
it adds a different perspective and a different voice to it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And maybe because a number of these women who are experiencing unplanned pregnancies and they're afraid and they're not getting the support that they're hoping from the guy who got them pregnant, maybe.
Or their father,
that male saying, it's okay. You're going to get through this. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
You can have this baby. Everything will be fine.
Right.
Having a male voice may be just what she needs to hear.
There's a country and western song, I can't remember who did it. It's a female singer. And one of the lines is, I never realized how strong I could be until I faced the weakness in me. And that's really true.
Oh, yeah.
That's really true. And so a lot of these times, these women feel totally unempowered. They feel totally weak, have no control, no power over what's happening to them in their life. And sometimes they need to have a man tell them, no, you're powerful. You can do this. And it means more, I think, coming from a man than from another woman in many cases.
So if you're a guy listening to this and you've got a friend or a sister or somebody who's pregnant, keep this in mind.
Absolutely. Don't shy away and say, well, I'll get mother to talk to you or
a female friend.
My girlfriend to talk to you or somebody. Don't assume that that's true. You might have more influence over her than you imagine.
We have a couple of really good tools that people can use
in crisis pregnancy centers and when they're talking to abortion-minded women. One of them is what we call a patient's notice of intent. We call it the force form here at Life Dynamics.
And we'll have the link to this in the episode description. You can go and download that form.
Download the form and use it yourself.
It's completely free.
Right. And what it does is there's a lot of women, and especially younger women, minor girls, who think they can be forced into having an abortion. I've talked to married 30-something-year-old women who were convinced by their husband that he could force her to have an abortion. And
legally, he can't.
And even a minor child cannot be forced to have an abortion, even by their own parents. But they don't know that. And we have a form called this patient notice of intent. And what this is we inform the women about their right not to be forced. But this is a notice that we have her sign. We use her name and we get her to sign it. And it's sent then to all the law enforcement agencies in the area and to all the abortion clinics in the area. So,
And if the girl is a minor, also as well to the Child Protective Services.
right, whatever it's called in their area. We want to put everybody on notice that this girl is saying, if I'm brought into your facility, that's what she says to the abortion clinic. If I'm brought into your facility, I will be there against my will. And if you do an abortion on me against my will, I will seek legal representation. And she's already got legal representation through this letter because we try to put her in touch with an attorney. And every CPC has got an attorney that they work through. But we have seen this document save, I can't tell you how many lives.
Well, I want to draw attention to this one paragraph. It says that if I am brought in for an abortion, I'm there because of the result of threats, intimidation, or force that are being directed at me. And despite whatever the person says at the clinic, they're saying they do not want to have this abortion.
Right.
Regardless of what they say when they're there.
Right. And if an abortion is done on a woman, when the people who are doing it know that she's being forced, they're exposing themselves to legal jeopardy. And if I remember right, I just thought about this. I think when you first came to work here, didn't you actually talk to a girl? You talked to a CPC director.
Yeah.
Who was calling saying that they had used this force form and this girl was scheduled for an abortion like the next day. And they used this force form and everybody backed away. The parents backed away, the abortion clinic.
Well, because basically that patient becomes kryptonite to any abortion clinic.
Absolutely. She is toxic.
Because she's all of a sudden, she's a litigation nightmare for them.
Right. And they don't know who she's talked to. They don't know how many lawyers she's talked to. They don't know how many members of the law enforcement community that she's talked to. And we have had situations over the years where the parents took a minor child to an abortion clinic that had received this by fax and knew that this girl was being forced, and they refused to do the abortion because they didn't want to face the legal jeopardy that they would be in. And the abortion wound up not happening.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there has been times when this has been tried and maybe it didn't work, or the girl backed away and said, no, it's okay, I'll go ahead and consent. But I have never had a single instance where a CPC director called me and said, we used the force form and it didn't work.
As long as you use it correctly.
If you use it correctly and you do how we tell you to do it.
Where you send it to every abortion clinic in the area, as well as every abortion clinic in the area where she might be taken for an abortion.
Right.
And sometimes that may be in a neighboring state, if you're like close to state lines.
Right. Or if your state has restricted abortion now, and there's a state next door, like Texas versus New Mexico.
Yeah.
They might take her to New Mexico. You better make those people aware.
And you may think, oh my goodness, New Mexico, that's going to be a ton of abortion clinics. Well, we've seen a whole bunch of abortion clinics close down over the last few years. There's probably not as many as you think there are.
Right. We had a case, I don't remember the state it was in now, and this was years ago, where the abortion clinic called us, because our name is on this deal.
Yeah.
And the abortion clinic called us, and the woman was legitimately concerned. She said, we don't really want to do an abortion on somebody that's being forced. And I said, well, this girl's being forced. And she said, well, her parents called me and set up an appointment, and they're coming in. And I said, well, I mean, you got to make up your own mind about what you want to do here, but I'm telling you, you're putting yourself in legal jeopardy. And she said, what kind of legal jeopardy can we be in? Well, it just so happened that we had had another case in that same state a few weeks earlier about the issue of force. And if you read that state's statute on sexual assault, the way it read was the invasion of one person's sexual organs without her permission, or that person's permission, by another person. And so an abortion would fill that definition.
Yeah, technically.
I said, now, they may not enforce that against you. I don't know. I can't tell you that. But you're taking a big chance. And you're also taking a chance that this girl develops problems after this abortion, emotional problems, and some lawyer gets a hold of her and sues you for emotional damage that you've caused to her because you did an abortion on her against her will, and you knew she was there against her will. They backed away. And that abortion wound up never happening. So we know this works.
Yeah.
And this notice of intent and this patient rights brochure, and we'll get to the patient rights thing here in a second, are designed to counter one thing that is universal about the abortion industry. The abortion industry survives off low information customers.
Yep, absolutely.
They need their customers to be in the dark about everything. Just come in, give us your money, and get on the table and put your feet in the stirrups. That's all we need to know. And when you start making these, even abortion-minded women, a woman who is, yes, I'm going to have an abortion, when you start making them aware
just a little bit.
Yeah, everything changes.
Yeah.
By the way, that patient notice of intent.
The force form. It's available at forceform.info. And of course, we will have the link in the episode description so you can click on it. You can download it there. It's absolutely free. Print it off, use it.
Use it the way we tell you. We give you instructions on the website, how it's to be used. If you use it the way it's supposed to be used, it works. You can save babies. These two forms, this patient notice of intent and this patient rights, are about as cheap a way to save a baby as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And they have saved, we have no idea how many babies, but we know it's a bunch over the years.
So Mark, tell us about the patient's rights.
Okay. We call it the abortion disclosure form. We started out calling it the last chance form because what this is for women who are at an abortion clinic and they've come there for the free pregnancy test. They're not there to get the free diapers because they have no intention of having a baby. Mm-hmm. And CPC directors will often tell you that we get women in here that no matter what you say to them, there's nothing you can say, they're going to have this abortion. Mm-hmm. They are dead set on it, even if they're not being forced. Mm-hmm. So what do you say to that woman? Do you just give up? And I think that what you say to her, and we've seen this play out many times, is, okay, if there's nothing I can say that'll keep you from having your baby killed, at least protect yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure that you don't also wind up in a coroner's office. Mm-hmm. And this patient rights brochure, it's called Patient Rights for Women Seeking Legal Abortions. You use this at the end. You don't give it out up front. This is when you've reached the point that you have nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. And you go over this form with her. And it tells her what her legal rights are. It tells her what the safety that she's entitled to, what she's entitled to when she has the abortion.
It also mentions that no one can force her to have an abortion.
That she can force her to have. We also have stuff in there about the abortion pill because the abortion industry in this country is wide open to malpractice vis-a-vis the abortion pill because they're using it against the protocol of the manufacturers. And what we tell her is to make sure that they adhere to the protocol. Mm-hmm. And if she insists on that, they're going to throw her out.
And I want to point out that if you look at this form, because there'll be pro-choicers who will hear about this form and they're like, well, this is just anti-choice propaganda. If you look at this form, it is so insanely mundane. If you were to take out the word abortion and put like tonsillectomy, right? Liposuction, something else like that, a standard consent form for any other procedure.
Right.
I mean,
nobody would object.
Nobody would object. This is so bland. It just says, this is what your legal rights are. These are some things you need to know about. The end.
This is what you can expect at the abortion clinic.
Yeah. No fear mongering, nothing.
Don't let them do this. Mm-hmm. Insist on this. One of the things that we tell them to insist on is to insist that the doctor that they see, and make sure they are seen by a doctor, make sure that he tells them, I have an advanced transfer agreement to a hospital in case you're injured. Mm-hmm. You will not be taken to a hospital 500 miles away. You'll be taken to the nearest emergency trauma center. Mm-hmm. Who can object to that?
Yeah.
We also have what we call physician disclosure section on here. Mm-hmm. The doctor puts his name on it.
The name of their malpractice insurance company and the policy number.
And the policy number and what the policy limits are.
And the expiration date.
And the expiration date. So that she knows he has liability insurance. Mm-hmm. Now, we do this if he gets in his car.
Yeah.
If he's in his car driving up and down the road, the state makes him have liability insurance.
And shows proof of it. Yeah.
And if he's stopped, they have to show proof. We want this woman or this girl to say to that doctor, fine, I want to have this abortion, but I want to know, first off, I want to know your real name. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I want to know your insurance company. I want to know the policy number, the policy limits, and I want to see that information in writing. Mm-hmm. And I want you to sign it. And it also lists the name of the nearest trauma center or emergency hospital, and that I will be taken to that facility, not one 300 miles away where your brother-in-law works and covers up your bad practice. Of course, we don't put that in the form, but the form is to be signed by the physician. Mm-hmm. And what we have seen and what we knew when we created this is there not an abortionist in the world going to sign this.
Yeah.
But what we have seen is that women see this as perfectly reasonable because it is perfectly reasonable.
Absolutely.
Like I said, totally reasonable.
If you were to go into a surgeon for something else, something completely mundane, like I say, like...
If you went to the dentist.
Yeah. And you asked for this information, you would be given it.
Right. There would be no suspicion.
There'd be no suspicion, no eyeing you over the counter. How dare you ask for this information? As a patient, you're entitled to this information.
And we tell her in the document, don't let anybody take this form away from you. Because we have had these abortion clinics say, let me see that and they look at it and they take it away somewhere and it never comes back. We have had that happen. We tell these girls, if that happens to you, you get up and leave. If you're insistent on having an abortion, that's fine. Go have it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But don't have it with this guy, because they're hiding something.
Yeah.
And you have a right to know. And if you were sitting in front of an abortion-minded woman, an abortion-insistent woman in this case, and you said, do you think that the abortionist that you're going to should have liability insurance, malpractice insurance, right?
Yeah.
What woman's going to say, no, I don't think he should have to have that.
Well, I think that sounds completely outrageous.
Right.
Yeah.
That's irrational to ask him for that. And do you think that as the patient, do you think you have a right to know that information?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But they're not going to give it, and he's not going to sign this. I remember one time years ago, when we came up with this form, first started using it, that was probably 15 years ago. A girl called me that had been given this form at a local CPC. And she said, I've been to 2 abortion clinics, and neither one of them would fill this form out and sign it for me and give it back to me. And she said, you're right, I have a right to know this information. Do you know of a physician in my area that will do it? And I said, we don't do abortion referrals. You know, that's not our business.
Yeah.
You're on your own for that. I said, what I suggest you do is go back to the CPC. Because I wanted the CPC to get a second shot at this girl, especially once she found out that she wasn't dealing with mainstream medicine here. She's dealing with outliers,
Yeah.
abortion clinics. And only the scum and the washouts and the losers and the moral degenerates of medicine wind up at abortion clinics.
And it just shows that they're not really concerned about women's health.
No.
I mean, these are the same people who balk whenever there's any restrictions or laws and stuff put in place requiring that their hallways big enough for gurneys to get out.
Yeah. Now, if they can go to an abortion clinic and they're hell-bent to do it and you're not going to talk them out of it, and they can find an abortionist who's willing to fill this thing out and sign it and give it back to her,
Yeah.
then the form didn't do anything. But what we have found is that almost never happens.
Yeah.
And we have put these things out by the gazillions to crisis pregnancy centers. And if somebody out there is listening and would like to have one of these forms, we put them out now in pads of 25. And we make them available very cheaply. I don't remember. Do you remember? It's like $8 a pad or $8 or $9, something like that.
I don't remember the exact, but it's something like that.
And you can
I know that there's a price break if you order 4 pads, which is 100 of them.
100 of them.
Yeah.
And we have had CPCs order these by the hundreds in the past. And we've had a few CPCs that have ordered more than 1,000 of them in the past.
Oh, yeah.
At one time.
Crisis pregnancy centers really like these forms.
Yeah. And they're very professional. And we have refined them over the years. It's a little bit different than when we started out. There were some things we found out that we needed to change. And this latest version has worked out really, really well. It has stuff about the abortion pill in there that they need to know. Anyway, if you'd like to have one of these, if you're a CPC or even a sidewalk counselor in front of the abortion clinic, when a woman pulls up or a girl's driven up and let out of a car and she's headed toward the front door of the abortion clinic, the sidewalk counselor only has a few seconds. Most cases, it's very, very hectic. You don't have a long time. This is the form that you can get the girl to stop and look at.
Know your rights about your abortion.
Right.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah, protect yourself. If you're not going to protect your baby, protect yourself. Let us give you this form, and don't let them do an abortion on you unless they fill this out. Don't let anybody do an abortion on you unless they fill this out. And these women will listen to you. You'll get a few extra seconds that way to talk to them.
Yeah.
Especially if they go in and they won't fill it out, or they try to take it away from her, or they do take it away from her and won't give it back to her. Usually what will happen is she'll get out and come back outside, and the sidewalk counselor can talk to them again. But anyway, if somebody wants one of these forms,
Just give us a call.
Give us a call and we'll send you one. If you're a CPC counselor or a sidewalk counselor, or you're in an environment where you want to use this form, just let us know, and we'll send you a copy of it, and then you can order them if you like them. If you don't, then you don't have to. But the force form and the patient rights form brochure do save babies. We have saved a bunch of babies with these over the years.
Yeah.
And it's very simple, and it's very straightforward.
And I would even say these are 2 good forms that pro-life student groups on college campuses need to know about
Absolutely.
and have on hand.
Right.
For
Yep.
anybody on their campus, absolutely. Especially if they're doing any tabling. This is stuff that they need to have.
Well, and if you got a friend on campus and say, she's going to have an abortion and I don't know what to say to her, and we hear that a lot. Well, one of the things you can say is protect yourself.
Yeah, Absolutely.
Protect yourself from this. And this is very straightforward stuff. And I'll challenge anyone to tell me that anything on either one of these, on the force form or the patient rights brochure, is unreasonable.
Absolutely.
A patient does not have a right to expect that. Anyway, until next Thursday, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight.
We're here to win.
We'll see you next Thursday if Sarah is okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.